Greetings to all of our webinar attendees. This is Tina Polishuk with the State Department of Education, and this webinar is going to be a rundown of all of the updates that we've recently released with the Advanced Opportunities Portal. Let's go ahead and get started here. I want to start off by saying thank you to all of you out in the field. We have a ton of people, actually over 800 people, that go through the technical services of making sure that Advanced Opportunities is being implemented correctly at both the schools, the colleges, with the course providers, and at counties. And I know that it's not an easy lift, and so I certainly want to just send out my gratitude to all of you who do the work to make sure that this money is accessible to our students. So keep up with the great work, and if there is more that we can be doing to support your efforts, please let us know, and just know that you have our support in this work. During our time together, we're going to go over a few different things. We're going to start with going over just an overview of the workflow and the deadlines, especially for those of you folks that are new this year, so that painting a larger picture for you is helpful. Then we're going to go into the new feature in the portal related to the early graduation student application. This feature is completely new. This is for those students who are applying for the Early Graduation Scholarship, which was previously known as the Mastery Advancement Scholarship, or MAP. And so we're going to go over that application. Next, we're going to go over a new feature regarding student account flags and show you how you can add a flag and take off the flag. The next item we're going to go over is how to deactivate a student account in case you have students who for some reason cannot log into their old account. I'm going to take some time to share some Excel shortcuts with you. There are a few different ways that we can expedite some processes, and so I want to show you how to do that for those of you guys that are working with really large spreadsheets. And then we're going to go over the State Department of Education verification process. Several of you have asked me, how does the State Department go through and verify that the data is accurate? And so we have a process internally that we use with my team, and so I'm going to share that with you, and hopefully that assists you in the data that you're submitting so that you can see what kind of sort of red flags we're looking for. And so I'm going to share that process with you. After each section, I'm going to go ahead and answer any questions that come in regarding each of these sections. So we'll pause for questions, answer those, and then move on to the next question. So let's go ahead and jump into the overview and workflow of the data. As many of you know, the process to get into the Advanced Opportunities Portal is instigated by the student. The student has the capability to have their account. However, that account is not active until someone at the district level approves it. So it goes to the school district. This is all managed at the State Department of Education. Now, whenever a student requests funding through the portal, again, it's got to be approved by the school district before it goes into the database. Then colleges, universities, and IDLA, they look at those records and they verify so that it's verified by both the district and the course providers. And then at the end of each semester, for those of you that are outside of a taxing district for a community college, your county clerks also log into the portal. So if your students for any reason are filling out certificates of residency related to a course at a community college, those folks also log into the portal. So that gives you an overview of the different users. In terms of the data flow, there are lots of different processes that take place in a given semester or trimester. And so I want to paint a picture of three very distinct times that we we separate the process into three distinct categories. And so we have this first one. You can see the green block. This is the student access window, or what we also refer to as the data entry window. Then we have a verification window and then the payment window. So I'm going to talk about each of these processes just briefly. So before these terms start, there is some activity that can happen. School districts can assign roles So depending on who in your district is serving kids, at which level, you can have a school role, a business manager role, a district manager role. So we want to make sure that the roles are assigned to the right people. And so if you had someone in your school district retire in the past, we want to make sure that the people who have access to the portal are that list is staying current. Your superintendent and your technology director both have access to assign those roles. So if you need a different role for some reason, then those are the people you want to contact. Also, before the term begins, before a trimester or semester begins, we want to set up classes. And later, at the very end of this webinar, I will also just do a quick reminder on how to do that, because many of you are doing that right now since it's the beginning of the semester. Then students can also create accounts, and that doesn't usually that happens during the student access window, but that actually can happen at any point in time. So the students always have access to that. Then as soon as the semester begins, that's when you're going to start approving student accounts. So if you're a district that allows students to create accounts, usually during the first 4 to 6 weeks of the semester or trimester, this is when you're approving accounts. Once those accounts are approved, the student can create funding requests. So if a student is taking an AP exam or a dual credit class, then this is the period of time where they will be requesting money. Again, this needs to happen during the first 4 to 6 weeks of every term. And then those requests need to be approved by the school district, again, during the first 4 to 6 weeks of the term. And then as soon as it's approved, this goes into the verification window for colleges and universities and other course providers to approve the data. Now, there are some school districts who choose not to have students create their accounts. So they're essentially skipping these first 2 steps. If that's the case in your school district, then after you assign the roles and set up the classes, you'll simply enter the funding requests, and those requests will go directly into the editable database. Now, after it is verified, let's see, we give colleges, universities, and course providers about 4 to 6 weeks to verify this information. At this point in time, many of them will send out invoices to any students who are not in the portal, because that means that they don't have proof of payment for those courses. Once all the data is verified, then the school district will submit it to the State Department of Education. It takes us about 4 to 6 weeks to process through the data, and then we send a payment out. And we're slowly expediting the process at the State Department. You know, the very first time we did fast forward, it took us 4 months to process the payments, and this time around we were able to get payments out within 4 weeks. We're very proud of that, and usually by the time the semester ends, we're able to get those funds out to districts and course providers. Now, a couple of deadlines to keep in mind. This deadline, the data entry deadline, is the one that happens early in the semester, again, after 4 to 6 weeks. This last semester, it was on September 30th, and in the spring semester, it's going to be February 24th. So you want all the data entered for your school district by this data entry deadline. Now, that means that you're going to have all the data in there, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be completely permanent. Because what happens is the colleges and universities need to have a match. And so they're going to start going through all the district information, and maybe there's a student who dropped a course that you didn't know about, or maybe a student maybe selected the wrong class or selected the wrong course number. All sorts of strange situations come up, and so you have this 4 to 6 week window to make sure that your data matches 100% with the course providers. And at that point, this is what we call the permanent deadline, or the submission deadline. You want to make sure there are absolutely no errors at this point. This last fall, the submission deadline was November 11th, and this spring of 2017, this deadline will be May 5th, and we'll make sure that that's also posted on our website, and it's in all of our correspondence when I send out updates. So that there is a brief overview of the workflow. Here are the deadlines for this year. This is for 2016-2017 school year. And again, I will also send this out in correspondence. So let's go ahead and jump to the portal so I can share the updates with you. And we're going to go ahead and start with the update with the early graduation scholarship. So if you have a student who is graduating a year or 2 years or 3 years early, you want them to get into the portal, make sure that they have an account, and apply for the scholarship. So we're going to go ahead and scroll down to Advanced Opportunities and apply for Advanced Opportunities as though I am a student. And I'm going to go ahead and log in. And so the student will have an option at the very top that says Apply for Early Graduation Scholarship. When the student clicks on this, they will be asked to enter 3 items. If they could select when they plan on going to college. So if I graduate this year, I'm going to select the 17-18 school year. And then let us know if you're planning on coming in the fall or in the spring. So let's say I'm planning on coming in the fall. And then which college I plan to attend, college or university. So I would select that and then submit application. And voila, that's done. That is all that the student needs to do. Now, in terms of if I am a school district or I'm with a school district, I'm a counselor or administrator, and I want to see which students have applied for the scholarship, let's go ahead and log in. I'm in here as a through a beta site. And so this should look just like the window that all district managers see. Under the Reports tab, the very last report is called EGS Student Applications. EGS stands for Early Graduation Scholarship. So when I click on this, we can see all the students' applications that are connected to the Early Graduation Scholarship. So here I have the application status. And so you can see that this student, there is an IC record that says the student graduated early. However, the student has not submitted an application. And so you can weed through here and see the students that are eligible. Now, in terms of how they become eligible, your IC coordinator will still need to report them as early graduates. So either a 4G if they graduated 1 year early, a 4H if they're 2 years early, or a 4I if they're 3 years early. Now please remember, if the student graduates at the end of the summer, that year doesn't count, because for Advanced Opportunities, the summer begins in the next year. And so be mindful of that to make sure that your exit codes are correct. So that's how a school district would pull a report. Now, if you are if you're with a college and you work with both the Advanced Opportunities portal and the Early Graduation Scholarship, then you will need a second role assigned to your account. That role is called the Early Graduation Scholarship. I think that there's only 1 or 2 providers where the Scholarship Director and the Advanced Ops Director and the Finance Officer are the same people, but I will reach out to those folks individually and make sure that they have the appropriate rights. So those are the features in the Early Graduation Scholarship in a nutshell. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a few questions that we're receiving in the webinar. The first question we have is, does that start this year? What about kiddos who graduated early last year? Excellent question. So we're going to start using this system for the 2016 graduates. So anyone who's graduating early this year needs to go through the system. Anyone who graduated early last year, I have that. I'm managing that on a spreadsheet, on a separate through a separate sort of system, and so we're going to wrap that up this year. But we're going to start with 2016 graduates. Great question. Next one is, can a school enter a request for an EGS, or does that have to be done by the student? That does have to be done by the student. That's a great question. The student has to log in, have an account, and actually apply. The responsibility of the school and the district is to make sure that the IC code is in there. And so make sure that they're coded appropriately, because the system will pull records from IC. And what's nice now is a lot of students will already have Advanced Opportunities portals, portal accounts, and so if I have their email addresses, I will go ahead and send them an email and say, you know, there's a scholarship that you're eligible for. You can go to the portal to access it, and so we'll be able to reach out directly to the students, which we previously were unable to do. The next question I have is, what if a student is interested in more than one college? Do they have to know for sure? Great question. So to apply for the scholarship, yes, they do need to know for sure where they're going. If they do change their mind, they can always go in there and submit a second application to the appropriate college. But what happens is once the student submits this application, the application goes to their registrar's office or their scholarship office, and the scholarship office has to verify that the student is enrolled in classes. And if they select a different college, then that application will go to the other college. So we want to make sure that they know for sure where they are going. The next question is, can a student who graduates early use the scholarship for colleges and universities outside of Idaho? And does the scholarship have to be used during the year directly following their graduation? So two parts to this question. The scholarship can be used at public Idaho institutions. So 3 universities, BSU, ISU, U of I, 3 community colleges, NIC, CSI, CWI, and then Lewis and Clark State College. So 7 different entities where they can use it. And perhaps in the future, if we do have the community college in eastern Idaho, that will become the 8th option. And it looks like those are all the questions related to early graduation at this point. So we're going to go ahead and go on to the next subject, and this is on student flags. So let's go ahead and look at that feature. We're going to go over to the Reports tab and look at courses awaiting SDE submission. I'm actually going to change school districts here because I have some sample flags in a different district. All right, so let's take a look here. So the flags, if you scroll over, to the very end, you'll see these dots here. Now, the green dots are students that are fine. The red dots are the students that are flagged. And so anytime you have a student that has a flag, they're going to show up here, and so what you want to do is you'll be able to click on that, and usually the flag will pop right up. In this case, we don't have any active flags. Let's take a look here. All right, so here we can see this Algebra 1 course, and so it says we are adding a new record. So that was the sample that I did earlier. So in order to add a flag, what I will do, so let's say I have a student who takes the class and fails it. And so I want to make sure that the next time the student is requesting some funds, that that we have the student pay for the next class, because they're ineligible to use funds until they've paid for one on their own. And I want to make sure that I catch that. But I oversee accounts for hundreds of students, so it's impossible for me to remember that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the EDU ID, and then we can add a new record here and just say this is a demo flag for the webinar. And then I'm going to save changes. And now anytime I see this EDU ID come up, these flags will come up. Now to take off a flag, I can simply clear it and it will disappear. So that's essentially how flags work. Now please keep in mind that all the users that have access to this student's data, so the course provider, State Department of Education, anyone in your school district, and even the student can see flags. So they can see exactly what you put in there. So please be very mindful about being politically correct, respectful, ethical in the comments that you put in there, because many folks can see that information, including the students and perhaps even the parents. So just be mindful of what is entered in there. So that's essentially how you add and take off a flag. Now, let's see, if I am a student and I want to see which flags are on my account, I can go over here and look at active flags. And so if I'm on the home page, it would just be a tab here. And then you can see here that it says, student failed overload course in spring, next course should be paid for out of pocket. And if I clear the flag, it will still show up in the student's account, but it will simply have a cleared date here. So the students can definitely see that in their accounts. Now what happens is when I attempt to approve a student who has a flag, let's take a look at what happens. So let's go back to new courses. And so this one here, if I look through here and I see, oh, everything looks good, and I save changes, I'll see this pop-up come up and it says, this student has been flagged. If this is okay, please press Save Changes to approve again. So it's telling you that the student has a flag. It's giving you a warning, but if you know that the flag has been cleared, then you can save changes. Now, if you want to look up that student and see why they have a flag, then you can go back here to the students, do the student lookup, you'll pull up their profile, and then it'll give you details on that as well. Or you can go back to view courses and it'll populate that for you just as I demonstrated earlier. Now a few things. If you would like to pull up a report of flags, let's take a look at our reports here. So student flags report. It will come up like this. So I can go ahead and when I pull up the CSV file, and it's, excuse me, let's go back here. So if I'm looking to see, I want a list of everyone in my school who has a flag so that it doesn't catch me by surprise, I can export it to a CSV. When you do that, you'll get an Excel spreadsheet that looks like this. And you can go up here to Data, turn on your filters, and that will give you arrows, drop downs for every single one of your columns. And so the very last column is called flagged. And so any student that is false is not flagged. Student that is true has a flag on the account. So you can sort it by true, and it will give you a list of all the students that have flags on their account. So that's a way that you can see that in reports. For college providers, you also have a report of this, and so you can export it to CSV and then pull it by flagged column, and you'll be able to see each of those. All right. A few things to note. Flags can be entered by school users, district users, State Department of Education, and college users. So absolutely everyone who has access to that student's record has the ability to add a flag. So it's not reserved to just the district or school personnel. So please keep that in mind. So even if you didn't enter a flag, there may be a flag in there from a college. And the idea there is that this is a mechanism for you to strengthen your communication. Obviously, this is it's ideal if, you know, when you're going through and verifying the information that if you have questions, that you pick up the phone and call the college or the school or the registrar or the accounts office. Having those conversations is critical, but this is just one more mechanism to help you with that communication process. So I'm going to go ahead and go to some questions. Looks like we have quite a few of them on flags. So first question here is, do you imagine any issues related to school districts and colleges adding and removing flags for the same students? Seems like there could be communication issues between the colleges and districts if it isn't solid. So going back to what I just reiterated, again, this is just another mechanism. The best line of communication is going to be for you to pick up the phone, to talk to each other, to email each other, but this is another mechanism to make sure that that flag pops up if there is a concern about a student account. And again, when you guys are emailing, either amongst yourselves or with the Department of Education, please be cautious not to ever include any student identifiable information in any emails. No EDU IDs, no first names, last names, especially if you're communicating with our department. Absolutely everything that goes in and out of our shop is subject to a public information request, meaning it's open to the public. And so if there's any information there, we don't want to jeopardize any of our students. The next question we have is, will a flag stay with a student when they transfer schools? The answer is yes, because the account is tied to the student's EDU ID number. And so what happens is the student, if they move schools, they will just begin requesting funds at a different school, but that flag is tied to that child's EDU ID, which will be the same at the new school. Next question is, for those of us who are dealing with hundreds of students in the portal, how do we know which students have failed? Is this something our instructors need to make us aware of, or do the colleges alert us of that? Excellent question. And so the processes at each college and university are different. We can certainly work with college providers to make sure that that list is getting to you. But additionally, the counselors that have been counselors and advisors or advanced opportunities personnel that have been most successful have just made a loop to every dual credit classroom and said, hey teacher, it's the end of the semester, can you please just give me a list of any students who failed to earn credit? And so they get that list, they go in and flag them in the portal, and then those records are there. So we definitely want to make sure that that process is in place. You have some discretion as to what that process looks like in your district or at your school, but definitely something that should be on your radar. Next question, can colleges, high schools, counties, and ID state flag the student in the portal? Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, anyone who has access to that student's information can put a flag on their account. Next question is, if a student failed courses last year, do we go back and flag the student now? So I would say with that, if the student has not paid for their own course on their own and is still kind of in hold status, you definitely want to put that flag on there, because it's a mechanism for you to maintain that record. And so if that student still has to make up a course out of their own pocket, it would probably be worth your time to flag them, because that's a record that you have to keep somehow. And so, like I said, this is a mechanism for you to do that. Next one is, if a student fails a course last semester, do they need to pay only for one course the current semester and be considered for additional funds? Can we enter them for other courses in the portal? So excellent question. We do get this one quite a bit. So if a student fails one free credit course, we want them to pay for the next 3 credit course. But let's say next semester the student is taking 12 credits. So of those 12 credits, we want the student to be paying for 3 of them, and the remaining 9 credits, we can go ahead and enter them in the portal. It can happen concurrently in the same semester. So yes, you can enter them into the portal for the other courses, but you want to make sure that at least one 3-credit course that the student previously failed is being paid for out of pocket. Next question has to do with, are we supposed, with letter grades, so are we supposed to flag each student when they have a C or lower? So this has to do with earning of credit. The way it's framed is it's not if a student failed a class, it's if they failed to earn credit. So go back to the institution that's transcribing, the college or the university, and looking at the child's transcript, if it's transcribed as 0 credits, then that's considered failure. If it's a D and that institution is still transcribing it, well, the credits are earned. So let's go back to, we're going to defer to the institution to see if they are actually transcribing that credit. And last question here for flags is, are the withdrawals treated the same as fail? The answer is yes. If a student withdraws from a course that the Department of Ed has paid for, then that's treated just like a failed course. So we want to make sure that if we've paid for a class, if credit was not earned, then the student needs to pay for the next credit. So great questions. Let's go ahead and move on to the next section, and this is on deactivating student accounts. So let's go over to our portal again. And so now every student has the option of, if a student loses access to their account, they can create a new account. Now here's what needs to happen. Let's say we look at this student here. Let's go back here. And so we see this student's account has been, the student has verified the account and the district has approved the account. So this is a student that has a live email address. They currently can go in, request funds. Now, in some cases, we've had situations where kids are completely locked out of their account. For example, they were at school district A, and school district A had them create an account, but they said you have to use your school email. And so now the student has moved to school district B and no longer has access to that email where he was previously managing his old account from. So what you can do is for this student, you would use the student lookup feature, put in his first name, last name, EDU ID, and you can disable that student's account. Once you've disabled that student's account, they will need to log in from scratch. They'll have to create an account, go in, verify it with their email, and the district will need to approve it. And when that EDU ID is verified by the school district, the two accounts will merge. So it will pull all the data from the old account to make sure that we're not double paying. And with that, any flags, any comments, any of those requests will come with the student. So that is a feature there. Now, when the student is logging in, let's go back to this. If a student simply forgot their password, then when they log into the portal, they can go ahead and just select Can't Log In, and this gives them an option to either reset their password or resend a verification email. So if it's an issue where the student simply can't remember their password, then we want them to use this feature. What it'll do is it will generate a global password for the student. It's about 6 digits. They'll get that to enter the portal, and then once they're in there, they can change their password in their profile. In some cases, we've had students that haven't gotten the verification email, so if that's the case, they can also do that here. So those are some options. So that is the deactivation. Let's see, and looks like there are not any questions about that. So we're going to go on and go to some of our shortcuts. And so I'm going to share just a few Excel spreadsheet shortcuts that have come in handy over the last few semesters. Let's see. There have been a lot of questions about billing statements. I'm going to pull this up, but I also pull up the portal. Now that we just sent out payments for the first semester, a lot of business offices have called me and said, I got a check for this much money and I don't know where it goes. And so a business manager can pull that up under reimbursements and billing statements, or a district user can pull it under reports and billing statements. So let's go ahead and click here. So anytime the SDE makes a payment directly to your district or on behalf of your students, it will generate a billing statement that you can access. And so let's take a look at one of these. So here we have this school district. This is a check that I sent to their office, and I can click on the arrow and it will give me a detailed report of the course, the student, the EDU ID, how much the course costs. So essentially there's a receipt for that. And so you can see exactly who that check applies to. So that billing statement is there. Additionally, and many business managers don't know this, I did send them an email quite recently about this, business managers have a special role in the Advanced Ops portal, and so they can go in, have your technology director assign them the business manager role, and then they have a tab that gives them all of the receipts so that you don't have to pull them for them each time. Additionally, you can export this to a CSV file and you can see all that information. Now, there are also questions that we get. Sometimes a teacher will approach a counselor and say, can you get me a list of all the students who have requested funds in the portal so that I can see which students I need to follow up with and make sure that they are getting into the portal and creating those requests. So if you need to do that, the best way to do that would be here under reports. You can either view courses, waiting SDE submission, that's usually the easiest way to do it. And I'm going to switch districts just so that I can demonstrate. Let's go here. Find a district that's on trimesters and has some information in there right now. And so we can go courses awaiting SDE submission. You can export this to a CSV file, and that will create an Excel spreadsheet of everything that's in there that's been approved. Now let's go ahead and let's go here, sort by class report. When you pull up the CSV file, it will look like this. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn on my filters. And you can go over here under courses and click on the drop-down menu and select which course that teacher is teaching. And say it's Chem 101, or maybe it's communications. So there are all the students who are taking that communications class and have signed up for funding. So that's a way that you can pull that report for the teacher without having to go in student by student and check every single one of them. So those are just some shortcuts that we've seen have been helpful for folks. So the last thing, we have just a few more minutes. The last thing I want to go over is the verification process for school districts. And so after the November 11th deadline and this spring it'll be the May 5th deadline, the Advanced Opportunities Support Team, there are about 6 to 8 of us that actually work on this process. We go through district by district and approve your district's data. And so I want to go through what process we use to do that. Let's go ahead and look at this. And so here, what we do is we're going to, look at, in this case, Pocatello. And if you are watching this and you're from Pocatello, I have changed some of this data for the purposes of the demonstration, so no need to go in there and be worried about any information that may not look accurate right away, because I have tinkered with it for this demonstration. So basically, when we pull this report for a district, we start backwards and then work towards the front. And we have a 6-step process that we go through, and we just look for anything that kind of raises eyebrows. So the first thing that we do is we go over to column S, and this is the provider enrollment. So we look and see, has the college or university withdrawn their verification? So maybe Idaho Digital Learning Academy, so maybe IDLA at one point said the student was enrolled, and then maybe the student withdrew and they said, oh no, the student's not enrolled, and they uncheck that box. So I go through and I pull any one of them that are false. And so it looks like these three right here, the provider has said to me, no, these students are not really enrolled in IDLA. Or in this case, it was one IDLA and two Idaho State University classes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick it back to the district. When I kick something back to the district, I'm always going to enter comments. Anyone from my team will also enter thorough comments as to why it was kicked back. And so let's take a look at what that might look like. So if I'm in the portal, and I'm looking at the report, either courses awaiting SCE submission or submit courses reimbursement. It's under either of those. You want to filter by any previous terms. So if you look here, and I'm in 2016, right now it's trimester 2. So if there's anything in there for trimester 1, it's either got to be a makeup payment or the State Department of Education has kicked it back to us. And so if it's in the wrong term, we want to look into that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the course. And then here, I'm going to look at the comments here. So this course was previously paid for in trimester 3. So in this case, we want to go ahead and deny this request. And since this is a beta account, it's not going to let me do that, but we're going to deny it, enter why we're denying it, and get it out. So anytime that you have a record in there that is for a previous term, that is a red flag for you to say, I think I got to look at that one again, and maybe we got to pull it out of our data set. Okay, so let's go back here. So that's the first step that we take. So after we look at column S, the next thing we look at is column R. And in this case, we look for any strange amounts. So what I do is I sort it smallest to largest, and I see, okay, this is a $0 amount. That's obviously inaccurate because I'm not going to pay out $0 on behalf of a student. So this is going to be one that I'm going to kick back. Then I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to look for multiples of 75 and 65. So 75 is your IDLA courses, and then 65 is going to be any of your dual credit courses. And if I see something like a 250 or a 200, anything that's just like, oh, that looks kind of weird, that's not a dollar amount that we usually pay out, chances are you'll either get an email about it or you'll get a call from our office to say, hey, tell us a little more about this so that we have an understanding of what it is. All right, so that's the second step. The next thing that we do is we sort through the course names. And so I'm going to sort this A to Z, and I'm just going to start looking at what kind of classes are we paying for. So these are all IDLA classes, which is fine. I'm going to look at the communication or the course numbers. And so we are not allowed to reimburse for any courses that are below 100 catalog number because those are considered remedial courses. So I'm going to watch for that. And anything that's kind of wonky, if there's an other course or something that you know, I can't really define what it is, maybe the course title is vague, I'm going to kick it back. So this is an example here. This term we did let it slide, but here in the spring, these are courses that I will kick back, and I will kick them back because they're not in there with the appropriate title protocol or title convention. We want to see all college courses entered like this. We need the prefix, so PE, the number, so 2222, and then the name of the course. So anytime you're entering a college level course, it needs to have this convention. So similar to the geology, we have geology, 1101, physical geology. And the reason we have to do this is because we go through every semester and we align this to look at the GEM alignment to see how many of these are aligned with the GEM framework. And if we have a vague title description like this, it's almost impossible to do that. So we'll go through, and if there is anything that comes up as an other course or anything that we have a hard time defining, or if it doesn't have the proper naming convention, we will kick it back to the district. All right, so then the next thing that we look at is the provider. And so I'll sort these usually A to Z, and so these are all providers that I know. The ones in state usually don't raise any flags, but here at the very bottom, we might have an other course or an other provider and it's Utah State. So if it's a vague provider, we might call you on it. If it's one that we know of that you normally work with, then we're gonna know that that's okay. But anytime that there's an other provider, there is a potential that we may give you a call on it, just so that we can learn more. So after that, the next thing that we do is we look for any duplicate courses. So I'm going to go ahead and sort these by student, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at the student's first and last name and make sure that that student is not enrolled in the same courses. And these are obviously all changed to a Jane Doe, but we're going to go through and just make sure that there are no duplicate requests. So if this was the same student, and we have the two courses right next to each other, I might kick one back saying this is a duplicate entry, please pull it out in your next request. And most commonly, interestingly enough, we've seen situations, most commonly the duplicates happen over the summertime with 8th graders that are going on to 9th grade. We have a lot of counselors and advisors who are doing an excellent job. And so the 8th grade counselor puts them in, making sure that, I want to make sure that the student doesn't miss out on funding, and then the 9th grade counselor at the new high school puts them in. And as a result, we see 2 entries. So make sure that that communication is taking place in terms of who enters those students. So we'll go through and watch for duplicates. After we've filtered through all the duplicates, the last thing that we do is we look at any makeup payments. And so what I will do is I will go over here and sort by term. This is only 16, 17, but I will look at any previous terms. So here I see a trimester 1 entry. And so since I'm approving everything for trimester 2 right now, I'm going to say, oh, interesting. I wonder why we missed this kid in trimester 1. So I'm going to go ahead and go into this student's account and just make sure that we didn't pay for this specific class in a previous semester. And if that checks out, then I will go ahead and approve the district. So that's the process that we use here at the department to verify the data. There's nothing super magical about it. It's just a verification process to make sure that there aren't any obvious red flags that perhaps were missed. So let's go through. It looks like there is one question that is kind of related here, and this actually has to do with submissions of AP exams. It says AP exams will be taken in May and will not be finished till May 19th. Since our submission is due on May 5th, how should we handle all of the changes that will be taking place after the submission deadline? I'm really glad that you brought that up. We have, we're going to ask that all courses are submitted by May 5th. However, with the exams, because the verification process is not as complicated, we're able to offer some leniency. And so we're going to extend the exam submission date to May 26th, so that when your students are taking the AP exam mid-May, if you have a student that is a no-show or chooses not to take the exam, then you have some time to pull them out of the portal. So courses, again, need to be submitted by the 5th, and exams can be submitted on the 26th of May. That's the last Friday in May. So we do have some leniency. Great question. So the very last thing that I want to demonstrate, and this is something that you're probably doing right now, and so this is just a refresher. has to do with how to create the drop-down menu. So if I'm creating a funding request, let's say, it's popping up in a funny spot. Let's refresh that. So if I go under funding request and I'm going to create a funding request for a student, I can go here, select all this information, and then maybe the course that I'm looking for says other, and there are no other options. And you're like, that's really strange. We actually offer a course through Boise State for at this middle school, so it should be in there, or in maybe a high school. So if you need to add something to that, you'll need to go over here to the Administration tab, and then there's Course Management and Course Assignment. Now, Course Management is for overload courses that are offered by your school district. You can create your own catalog. Course Assignment is where you create your drop-down menu. So if you want courses to populate in that list, you're going to want to go to Course Assignment. We're going to select the 16-17 school year. And let's say I'm doing this for Century High, and we're offering a course through ISU. And go ahead and populate the grid. And so here we get a catalog of all of ISU's courses. So right now it's trimester 2, and let's say this Art 1106 drawing class, we offer it at our school. But the reason it's not populating in my menu right now is because you notice this is changed to disallow. So what I can do is I can change this, and I don't know why that's coming up in a funny spot, but there it is. I can change it to allow, and maybe I also offer this Arts 271 course. I'm going to change that to allow, and then I'm going to save changes. So let's take a look now when we go to create a course application. And it's being fickle with me, which is fine, but we can go here and go, we're going to select the school year, Century High School, say I'm in grade 10, trimester 2, I was through ISU, and so we see those two courses are now populating in the grid. So I can select that, and it will auto-populate that information for me. And this is also, once it's populated on your drop-down menu, it will also populate for the students. So that is how you create your drop-down menu. If you do have an overload course, maybe a 0-hour, a summer course, an after-school course that you offer through your district and you want it to populate in that grid, you'll first need to create the course under Course Management. So you'll select the school year and show courses. And so let's say I want to add a new course. So I'm going to call this my demo course. And let's say my district charges students $100, and we offer it in trimester 1 and then trimester 2 and 3. I'm going to save changes. Now this is a list of my catalog. I haven't actually put it in the drop-down menu. I've only placed it in the catalog. So the next thing you want to do is, after you've managed your course, you want to assign the course. So I'm going to go over here to school year, and we're going to assign it to Century High School, and the provider is the school district. So I'm in here as a district manager. And so we see the demo course right there, but right now it's available these 3 times, but it's not allowed. So I'm going to go ahead and allow it during trimester 2 and then save changes. So let's take a look now. And when I go here, go through the menu, let's select trimester 2. The course provider is the school district. And so you'll see the demo course come up right there, and the information auto-populates. Then you can submit. So that there, in a nutshell, is how you do course assignment. So I have a couple more questions that have come up. So we've reminded you how to create that drop-down menu. And the question I have here is, can we use this feature for IDLA? Excellent question. So with that, please do not use this feature under Course Management for IDLA. because IDLA courses are automatically pre-populated in all drop-down menus. And what I mean by that is if a student selects IDLA as the course provider, so let's go here, all of IDLA's list is auto-populated already. So you don't have to go in and say, allow, allow, allow for IDLA courses. We are also in the process of working with BYU Independent Study to have that be the case, because we realize that the scope of all the different options that students can be taking through these online providers is varied. And so we want to make sure that we're not giving you extra work with, having to go in and allow each course. So don't use the course management option for IDLA courses. That should only be for courses that are offered by your school district, with your school district being the provider. So that there is all the information in the webinar. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to our Advanced Opportunity Support team. As I wrap up, I want to just show you a few more features on our website that you might find helpful. Here we have a list of regional coordinators, so our support team, our contact information is here. If you need to access any of the dual credit coordinators at the different colleges and universities, their information is here. Overload course providers such as Bonneville Online, IDLA, Idaho Independent Study, BYU Idaho, their information is there. And then anyone who oversees the early graduation scholarship at the colleges, so their information is here. Additionally, we will be posting this webinar on our training tab. So over here, this is anything that has information, any videos, any user manuals, and I will make sure that the webinar is posted here. And again, if you have questions, let us know, and we will